I actually think part of me dating unavailable men was me keeping myself safe.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It was safe. And like some people's versions of safe would have been like just dating a good guy and settling down, right? But for whatever reason, like my version of safe was like, let me just date a bunch of people that like won't ever commit, that will be like these like torrid love affairs that will always leave me
Red
heartbroken.
flags, yeah, unavailable, leaving me feeling rejected.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then, you know, when I found the guy, we get engaged, like we're planning a wedding, whole thing. I had so much stuff come up around like realizing that I had so much like commitment fear.
Welcome to the show, Danielle Mercury. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi. It's so good to chat with you.
It's so good to be back.
No, this is your second time on the show.
I know. The first one is very memorable.
What stood out to you in that first time?
Well, we shared about our cacao experience, and I think that was the first / might be one of the only times I've talked about that in a podcast.
Yeah.
But we were there for it together, and that whole magical Metatron cacao ceremony experience was just, yeah.
Live for a good Metatron moment. And I'm going to put, for anyone that's like super intrigued, I want you to just listen to the episode. So we'll put the episode link so you can listen. But let's just say that cacao has a certain ability to evoke certain qualities within the archangel community that may be favorable and evoke sensations that are quite lovely beyond just a good meditation.
Quite lovely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you still work with cacao at all?
A little bit here and there. I've done we did a cacao ceremony at my bachelorette, and I've done a couple of cacao ceremonies here and there, but not quite in that way.
Yeah.
Not in that way.
I love that you did that for your bachelorette. So wait, did you do other like groovy spiritual things?
We went to Sedona. So so I did like a very spiritual bachelorette. So we went to Sedona. We rented a little house. So we did a ritual the first night, like set our intentions for like the weekend, and then we had like an angel guide that brought us to a labyrinth, and we walked the labyrinth, and then we did this like healing. It's called emotional code healing, where we were like releasing all of this like ancestral emotional like programming that we had, and then we went to the vortexes, and then we tapped into like the other realms to like receive message from our deceased loved ones, and then we went to quantum breath work, and I went all out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you went all out for your bachelorette. Yeah, I love that that's how you do it. Like Sedona is our Vegas.
It is. And like, that's like just who I am. Like, like that's like my idea of a good time, and how I hang out with most of my friends is like ritual.
100%. Yeah. The thought of going to like a traditional bachelorette, like I already feel drained at the thought of something like that. Right.
Right. Yeah. I was like, even I was trying to buy like little favors and things, and I'm like looking at some of these pictures online, and it's so funny because they have all these like cute little like hats and t-shirts that just say like, I'm here to get drunk.
Or like the penis straws.
Yeah. I was like, I just don't have the capacity in me these days. But
no. Well, and especially like I want to be able to show up for the rest of the trip,
Oh, absolutely. And for me, what was really important to me was like, I wanted the bachelorette to be an experience where like all of my friends that went had like a spiritual moment or like a breakthrough or got some like insight or guidance. Like that was my real vision, was that we all were able to kind of get some healing or peace or insight, through it.
Yeah, I love that, because when you're supporting a friend in a wedding, of course, you're there to support them, and it is an investment. So for you to create something where everyone's investment in you also like created something for them. I think it's really special.
Yeah.
You're such a good friend. I love that. Okay, so let's backtrack because I feel like the last time, like, you know, back in the day, like you and I, we both lived near each other, so we would hang out a lot. And I know you were single and you were on the apps and there was a journey with a couple different guys, but here you are engaged, which I don't really know much about that process. So I'd love to kind of hear. Yeah, I want to know how it all happened.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, so I'm getting married in June and we've been together since like a few months before the pandemic started. And we actually got engaged the December right before COVID hit. Okay. And it's sad that my romantic timeline is now like correlated to like COVID, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, and what happened with that was really interesting. So you knew me while I was like dating and, you know, doing my thing. And the last guy I dated before my fiance, I don't remember if I told you about him, but he was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Okay. And I was dating this guy who was younger than me, who was an entrepreneur and had told me early on in the relationship that he might move to a different country because of his business, right?
Yes.
And I proceeded to date him anyway, knowing that I supposedly wanted to, you know, I was saying, quote unquote, I wanted to find my husband and I wanted a committed relationship, but perpetually dating these men that were not available for that and couldn't provide that. And so when that relationship crashed and burned after about 6 months, because he was moving to China and I knew that.
He followed through, technically.
I reflected on it because it hit me really, really hard. And it was like definitely, it was an Aries full moon. And I had looked at his chart and I actually I'm sure you get this being an astrologer where like sometimes I'll look like, obviously whoever I date, I know their chart. And then when I look at like what's going on in the sky, I saw it. I saw it and I didn't want to see it, but I was like, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm just paranoid. Anyway, it was like, yep, called it, crash and burn. Yeah. But afterwards, it really hit me so hard. I was so rocked by it because I was really at that point in my life where I really thought I was ready for something, that it actually was the biggest gift because I, for the first time, really looked at things. And I was like, okay, Cass, where are you out of alignment here? Where are you saying that you want something and then actually not doing the things that are necessary, right? Like we're both really, we're both really powerful manifestors. I knew I was a really powerful manifester of things at the time. And yet this was like a thing that I'm like, what am I doing? Right. And so I saw for the first time with really like, you know, hard eyes that I was in this awful pattern of dating all these really unavailable men who on some level revealed how unavailable they were. And I proceeded anyway.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I made a commitment to myself that I was going to go for available men. And I was going to date.
Goodness.
I was going to date outside of my comfort zone. And so I have a little, as I do, I have a ritual with two of my girlfriends, the three of us all in similar situations who just broke up with unavailable men. Or I think one was still kind of in like the messy breakup with an unavailable man. But we were all in a similar situation and we sat down and we like kind of talked about what was going on. And then we wrote down our list of like what we really wanted. Like what we really wanted if we thought we could have anything, right? So like I wrote down things like I want to get engaged like within like 6 months. I want him to be more sure of me in the beginning than I of him. I want him to know very early on that he wants to marry me. I want to never like worry if he's going to text me. I want him to ask me out before, like I just like went for it, you know.
Yeah,
I was like,
you really did. Yeah.
I was like, I want all the things. Yeah. I even said that I want him to be like okay with like international travel, and I want us to both like. I really went for like no holds barred.
Mm-hmm.
And so in like the I would call that the magical energetic aspect of it, and then the practical part of that journey was me saying, okay, well now what do I do that's different? So most of the guys that I dated before were all guys that I had met through some sort of like organization or some event or things like that. So I was like, I'm going to get on the apps. And I went on an app called The League, which was like supposed to be like more for professional people or whatnot. So I was like, okay, we'll try this. And I also said, I'm going to start dating. I'm mostly exclusively dated like entrepreneurial people. And I was like, I'm going to start dating people with like normal jobs too. I'm going to explore and date people, the kind of people that I haven't dated before. And so I went on like duty dating, and I dated.
I love that you call it that, duty dating.
It was just like, that was my job. I was just dating a different guy every day. And
every day?
Almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah, I would go on
How many
one date.
men did you date during that period?
I didn't get through a lot before I met my fiance, honestly. It was really only maybe a month later.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. Okay, cool.
It was like a month later I met my fiance. But I went out with like, I was like, I'm going to date lawyers, doctors, marketing people, like, just.
Yeah, whoever was showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people who weren't my usual type of, what I was going for. Mm-hmm. And it was so great. It was so interesting. And when I met my fiance, he's a doctor. Mm-hmm. And it was so interesting because he was the first person that I went out with during that time that I just like had so much fun with and like didn't think about anything with.
You were just like so present.
I was just present, and it just like flew by, and I had a fun time, and I wasn't like in my head like future tripping, but I also wasn't like distracted, Mm-hmm. And he asked me out for the second date at the end of the first date. So I was like, check. Right. And he would follow up via text and and things kind of just progressed from there. And it was so easy and it was so effortless. It made me realize how crazy I think I had been in the past, accepting so much less than that. And then like a few dates into it, I actually had already planned like a 2-week long trip to Europe months ago. So I just told him, I was like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be gone for a bit. And he was like, oh, where are you going in Europe? And one of the places I was going was Germany, and he speaks German. And he was like, oh, we want company in Germany. I'll fly out and I can meet you for a bit. And I was like, we've only been on like 5 dates. Are you sure? Yeah. And he was like, hey, if you are, why not? What do we got to lose? And I was like, okay, what do we have to lose? Either it'll go down in like a burning flame, which I'm used to at this point.
But it'll be a good story.
And onwards, or it'll be a great story. Mm-hmm. And so, so he joined me in Berlin, and he stayed with me throughout Copenhagen and Paris. And by the end, pretty much, I knew by the end of that trip, he was going to be my husband.
Yeah. I get chills. That's so amazing. And so then what was the timeline of when he proposed?
He proposed at 6 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have chills. I love that.
He asked me to move in with him like very early on. He asked me to move in with him like 4 months into it.
Okay.
And I remember like my parents and like some other people in my life were like, are you sure? Like, that's kind of crazy. I've never moved in with anyone else before in my whole life.
Neither have I. Right.
Yeah. So I was like, it's not like something I do,
Just move in with men immediately.
But everything in my body was like, I loved my apartment in Santa Monica. I was so happy where I was. And I felt like everything in my body was like, yes, let's do it. Yeah. It's not like I was like, I think it helped that I really loved my apartment. I loved where I lived because I knew that I wasn't just trying to leave.
Right. It would be a different story if, there was an issue with the place and you were looking for an escape and you're like, perfect. It was like, It
was like, no, this is really great. And I really love this apartment, but also like, I feel like this is my moment to jump.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait, when did you say I love you the first time?
He said it first. I think it was, we got back from Europe and I was like, oh, he totally does. Yeah. And then he was over in my apartment and it was like in the morning, he was like half asleep and he mumbled under his breath, like, I effing love you. And I was just there in bed like, oh my God. Right. Did he just say it? Like, does he know he just said it? Because he's still kind of asleep. And
right. This is a dream.
So I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I just let it go or whatever. And he didn't say anything or whatever. And then like a week later, he took me out to this really pretty restaurant down on the water in Laguna. And then like afterwards, he was like, let's take a walk on the beach.
Oh, so cliche. And I love it.
Right? And he was like, he's like, I've never felt like this way about anyone in my life. And I love you. And yeah, it was really funny because I was like, I was just like, I'm such a troll. And I was like, oh, thank you.
That's like me. I'm the same way.
And then it was like, and he was like, can you just don't say anything? Let me finish my little speech. Okay. And I was like, all right. They said this little speech and I was like, okay, thank you. And I love you too. And he was like, you're the worst.
Yeah.
But he loves me. Yeah. And then afterwards I asked him about it. It turns out he didn't remember
he didn't.
saying it in his sleep. Yeah. He was like, I can't believe I spoiled it for myself.
It was just a preview. It was just coming attractions.
Exactly. It was like an unconscious thought that was like effervescing during his dreams.
That's so cute. I love it. Well, I love just like witnessing and how, again, like we were saying, like when it comes to work and so many other areas of our life, we tap in, we feel it, we make it happen, right? And for some reason, relationship was that area where it wasn't going down. And so for you, it was like, all right, let me like really tap in. Let me really get honest. Let me really go for it. Like the way I go for another areas of my life and I create those big asks, So I think it's really awesome that you like rose above the limitations that you were putting on yourself and just went for that big ask of like, this is what I expect.
Yeah. And I really think that's what really unlocked it finally, because, before then I feel like I had this kind of attitude of like, oh, like, we'll just see what shows up,
Totally. It'll work. I trust the universe. My person will come. It's fine. Yeah. I'm ready.
But you're right. It's like, and I think everybody has different areas, right?
Yep.
So like for me, it was always like, doubling down on the work. And like, that's when I like not only used my practical energy, but I used like a lot of my spiritual energy and what I know about like energetics and stuff. And for whatever reason, it was like, oh, I can do all of that with this, but like, no, I'm just going to like let that figure it. I'm just going to let my relationship figure itself out. Right.
Totally.
And that doesn't change. Like even when you're in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's like being in a relationship is like, I would say, I don't think it's that much work, but it is also like, it's like tending to it like a garden, right? Like making the time to have those conversations, making the time to connect, honoring like what each other needs to feel loved and feel supported and stuff like that. And it's things that we like, I'll just say me, I unconsciously will just do that in my work, right? I just like automatically expect to keep tending the garden of my career, right? And then I have to more consciously remind myself to do that in my relationship.
Right, because when you're doing it with work, you're basically just telling yourself. And so you're just tending the garden within. And so now it's like, oh, wait, there's actually another human that can't always hear the conversation in my head about how we're keeping this going. So
yeah, exactly.
There, I guess I could do.
I guess I have to talk to them too.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a shift though. I mean, again, like, you and I have been single on and off for a long time, entrepreneurs, you loved your apartment, never lived with anyone else before. So it is, as much as you are ready, it can still be such a huge shift to.
Oh, I think it was it's funny. I just had a client that I was talking about this with, about how I actually think part of me dating unavailable men was me keeping myself safe.
Totally.
Right. Yeah. It was safe. And like some people's versions of safe would have been like, just dating a good guy and settling down, right? But for whatever reason, like my version of safe was like, let me just date a bunch of people that like won't ever commit, that will be like these like torrid love affairs that will always leave me
red flags, unavailable, leaving me feeling rejected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then, when I found the guy, we get engaged, like we're planning a wedding, whole thing. I had so much stuff come up around like realizing that I had so much like commitment fear. I had gotten so good at living alone and gotten so good at doing my own thing. And there was so much fear around commitment. There was I'm a fiercely like independent woman and I need a lot of alone time. And there was a lot of fear of, like my freedom being encroached upon, or, am I making, am I sure I'm making this choice if I'm going to like give up this, like, it was a lot of stuff that came up, I think, because of that fact. It was like, I felt almost safe in that constant pattern of like being hurt and having nothing work out.
Right. Because, and I relate to that, because in having nothing work out, the one thing that gets to keep working out is me and my independence. And, and it's so easy to say, well, look, of course I'm so ready. I have a great job. I have a great, of course I'm ready for a relationship. Look at me, look at my life. It's so ready for a relationship. And picking unavailable men that of course would not be able to opt into that, because deep down I wasn't ready to invite that in.
Absolutely. And when you're living with someone, one of the things I learned living with someone is like you can't hide, right?
Yeah.
Like not only are they such a mirror, but also you're just like being witnessed, right? You can't get away with some like of your BS.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's like tremendous growth in that. And like, you know, I feel like I really like learn, I have adulted far more since we lived together than I did on my own. And there were just things that like when you have another person that you have to consider and you have to like, you're a teammate with, that shift. And in a way, like I remember when I was single, one of the things I thought about was like, what's going to happen, you know, when I live with someone else? Like, am I going to be able to am I going to be able to keep up with some of these, like, not, I don't know. I didn't do anything horrible, but it was like, I'm not the cleanest person.
You can be a little lazy on your own, right? Like,
yeah, you can be super lazy. Like, I would leave dishes in the sink if I was working on something.
Totally.
I had an entire like closet full of beauty products.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it makes you look at your stuff. And also you have someone else that's witnessing you, even around like your business and other stuff, right?
Right. Like you kind of have to talk about that stuff too. And you're like, wait, but the business is mine. And wait, I'm talking about it with you. Okay. And I'm talking about money with you. And I'm talking like, like, whoa.
It's
I mean, I can only imagine. I'm not there yet, but.
It's full on. It's full on. Oh, we just bought a house together. That's its own initiation. Now you're really like going through like everything you've ever bought or, you know, all of your things. It's crazy.
I know. Cause money is kind of also like, a private thing for me. Cause it's like same thing when you live alone, like you spend your money on whatever you want. Right. And you do what you want with it. And no one has to hear about your history or anything you've done in that way.
It has been so like so vulnerable on so many levels and like more initiations of vulnerability, but also very, very healing. Yes. Because you start seeing like when you can't hide from someone, you start having to look at the parts of you that you want to hide from someone, right? And then having to heal them. And there's also a lot of healing in someone being able to witness some of the things that you don't like, you're not necessarily proud of or whatnot, and love you through it.
Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful. Like what a testament to growth. And I feel like me personally, like I was telling you right before we got on, I've been talking to someone that I really like. We're at the 6-week phase. And well, it's interesting because I always said, I want a man that's mutually independent with me because, you know, which I love until the moments where I'm like, wait, I don't want to be independent right now. Like what's going on, right? Like, wait, I think he's off doing his independent thing, and I don't want to be, right? No, but it's great because it actually is allowing that flow and that cadence that I prefer. I don't like the whole, like in theory, I love the idea of let's rush and let's like hang out all the time, but it's like, no, actually, I don't love that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't either, which is great. But what's been interesting for me is I really did feel like I dropped in and I like kind of made an ultimatum with the universe, especially being where I am right now in Greenville, South Carolina, in my little Pleasantville. I'm kind of like, you know, I have some friends here, but I've really just been kind of doing my own thing and I've been very independent here. So I told the universe, like, if you want me to, like, if I'm supposed to stay here, I'm going to embrace partnership, and partnership is going to be a part of me being in this town. If not, when the lease is up, I'm going to a bigger city again, or I'm, you know, whatever it may be. And it's not and I feel really calm about this request. It's not urgent. It's not like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? I was just like, I have 6 more months until my lease is up. I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to embrace partnership. And then literally like a week later, I meet this person.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. And then, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is great. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm starting to get these moments and I'm at the point now where it still has nothing really to do with him per se, everything that's coming up. I'm like, now it's like, oh, now I get the next phase of healing that would never be available to me unless I am actually like in the experience of dating someone. So that's kind of where I'm at now, which has been so interesting. And I guess I never comprehended that there's a lot of healing involved while you're getting to know someone. It's a strange,
oh my gosh,
you know, I guess I just always thought, oh, that will come later. Right? Like right now we're just going to like, you know, date and do the things, but like, whew, it is bringing up so much for me to look at in a beautiful way, but like it is tender.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the more intense it's coming up is more the like in relation to the fact of like how serious you are about stepping into that next level. It's kind of like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And like the universe or the divine or whatnot, it's pretty much like, okay, Danielle, so here's all the shit that we need to work through, you know, like, let's go through these papers and like start, you know, getting them through, you know, shredding or whatever you're doing. Right. And I think when we look at that from that angle, then it becomes, like you were saying, it's, you know, it's so important to have that knowing of like, it's always just like you working on you.
Of course.
You know, and even at like now at this stage of my relationship, like, yeah, we like, you know, have talks and like compromise on some like, you know, logical things. But when I have a problem with him, it's always really a problem with me.
Right.
And when he has a problem with me, it's always a problem with him, you know?
Which makes so much sense. But yeah.
But they are, you know, dating, I think on some levels, it's just like, it can bring up so much because there is that, you don't, it is like that little dance, right? You don't have that safety yet. There's not as much security, right? Like I would say like in my relationship, we're like at the point where like, I'm not like worried how he feels about me. Right.
Exactly.
But there's other shit that comes up, but in the dating phase, there's still that, like all that stuff that comes up about like, you know, do I trust? Right? Do I trust? Or like, do I feel like I'm good enough? Do I trust, like, if this guy's the guy, he's just going to step up? You know, do I trust that I can lean back? And that I think would be like my best for anyone that's listening, that's like dating right now, or, you know, wanting to step more into that in their life. I think one of the best things I did with my fiance, future husband, was I was full on back in my Aphrodite clamshell.
Love it.
I was full on hands off, and I let him really come to me, and I let him really, you know, do the calling, do the texting, do the asking me out, and just show me who he was.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And this is the first time I'm also doing that. And I think, and then again, and we look at other areas of our life. We are the initiators. Of course, we're going to reach out. We're going to make this happen. We're going to, you know, do that. So not do that and still see him show up and do it on my behalf is amazing. But it's still not it's nowhere near comfortable yet. It's like, it feels amazing when it's happening. And then the next day I'm back to like, ooh, but like, maybe I'll just, you know, double check for the next time.
You're like, angel spirit guides, be with me right now so I do not text him.
I don't know how many things I've given up to spirit, or I'll just like text a girlfriend instead. I'm like, instead of texting him, I'm texting you, FYI.
Good. And, you know, I think just to also give this caveat, it's like, if you're out there and you're listening and you like love being an initiator and you want to be a little bit more the alpha in your relationship, then like go for it, girl. But the problem is that those of us that want to be, that are alpha maybe in other areas of our lives, but want to be more beta in our relationship, want the alpha man, you will repel the alpha man if you are in your alpha when you're dating, right? So you want to be like, my fiance is such an alpha. And so even though like I am, and he appreciates like what a powerful, like independent woman, he loves all the stuff I do work wise and how ambitious I am. And he lets me, I've been like traveling and he just lets me do my thing. Right. Sure. At the end of the day in our dynamic, he's always the one that calls. He's always the one that texts. He's to this day is always the one that like will initiate a lot of the romantic gestures. You know, that's his role. Yes. You know?
And I love that. And in my position, that is what I'm looking for, because I'm so responsible for the rest of my life. And I'm so, you know, that alpha at work, it's like, I want to come offline and
amen. Like rest and relax and get to be nourished. And but I think it's really nice.
It's awkward to witness it, especially again, when you've been dating a lot of unavailable men and you were just playing that. Like for me, I was such the initiator with the unavailable men.
Yeah, because you had to be, right?
I did, and if you didn't, you weren't going to see them. But then
exactly.
But then sometimes you still wouldn't see them, and then it's so weird.
Like, oh my God, Danielle, I look back now, and I just think like, oh, there were entire relationships that would not have happened if I wasn't like fully micromanaging them,
100%.
And then like. Right. From like the vision right now, I look at it, you know, I have some of my clients that I'm working on this with, and, you know, it's crazy because now it's so crazy. Like when they will tell me their stories, like, oh, well, like we had a great date and like, you know, he said he wanted to see me again. So like, you know, I texted him the next day and said like, when do I get to see you? And I'm like, no, why'd you do it? Don't do it. Right. Or like whatever it is. And I kind of see the misstep. Right. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple of dates down the line, he kind of blows them off or, you know, whatever happens, right? And it hurts so much. But then you realize that like, if you had never reached out, he may have never even texted you again for another date. And while at the time that seems like an awful scenario, the truth is, wouldn't you rather him just save you the time and not text you again and go on with your merry life and be like, okay, well, whatever, I never heard from that guy again.
Right. And so glad that, I found out now before got deeper in. It's like, yeah, I say that too, is give it space to see what he's going to do with you, if that makes sense. And it's so, I know that's so hard for many women, especially, entrepreneurial, strong, independent women. It's hard for us to give it space because like you wouldn't do that with an email, right? If someone emails you about like an opportunity, you would be like, what, I'm going to lean back and just give it a little space. And it's like, no, I'm going to write back, And so there's this instinct to do that, but it's counterintuitive.
Yeah. I've been practicing a little bit more of that in general in my life. I think I'm really good at doing it with my fiance, but now I've been playing around with that more, even in business, not in the way of like, I would like be irresponsible and like ignore something or anything like that. But in the way of also just like, I think it comes down to a level of trust, right? It's like in that moment, there were men before him that I would go on a great date with and I wouldn't hear from again. Yeah. Right. Or that would like text me, but never really like ask me out on another date, like those types or whatever. And I would just let it go. Right? Like I wouldn't reach out. I wouldn't offer anything. I wouldn't try to like fish for a date or, whatever.
Right. Like
and so they just kind of
one more time.
evaporated, right? It just evaporated. And I was like, what I found was it was like leaning into a trust that there's no way the guy that was meant for me could fall away. Right? And like, I remember when I met, when I was dating Patrick, he actually said to me, I think it was like a third date or fourth date. I don't know. It was early on though. And he said to me, he was like, he's a surgeon. So it was like, I was in the operating room today and I was talking to the, whatever the people that he talks to, his like crew. And I was saying how like, it's so strange. I've never dated a girl at this point where she like never called and never texted me. Wow. Or like, you never reach out to me. And I was like, yeah, it's not my thing. I don't do it. And I'm like, but I'm always like responsive when you text and I'm always like, I say yes.
And I think that's important to communicate as well, right? Like we're not saying become like avoidant or like don't give any feedback to what they're doing.
Yeah. Like I always respond, I'm not like playing games. Like I say yes when you ask me out. And he's like, no, I know. That's why I know that like, it's okay to keep calling you and stuff. But he was like, I also just realized he's like, I thought for a moment, well, I could just wait and see if she reaches out. And then like, I thought a second later, like, I don't want to wait. I want to see her again. So like, I want to talk to her again. Like, who cares? Right. And that's like where you want that mindset to be at. And then I think about that, like applying that to other areas of my life, right? I think earlier on in my entrepreneurial journey, I was way more like kind of clingy to opportunities. Yeah. Like you'd get an opportunity, they'd email you about something, you'd email back right away. And then you'd be like praying that they like email you again and like confirm
so afraid that they would change their mind or find someone better. And it was like probably an opportunity that was for free, right? Yeah. You wouldn't be getting paid anything. You probably would be paying money to get your hair done and outfit to the place. And you would live in like anxiety. I would live in anxiety until we signed like a contract or whatever it was. And now I try to, I think that has stopped a lot as well, obviously as things grow, but also it stopped energetically in the way of just like, I just trust that I do my part. Like I respond to my emails, I respond to things, but also if something gets lost in translation or if I don't hear back from someone, I trust that wasn't meant for me. Yeah. And I trust that just like in the situation that I know for sure with like a man, that if something was coming through for me and for whatever reason, like it went to my spam or I didn't get it or whatever happened, we forgot about it. Yep. That person would repeatedly email. They'd follow up.
Yeah, if it was really meant to be, they would. And so I think there's so many ways to also just incorporate that aspect a little bit more into our nervous system as a whole, of like really trusting that we get to actually sit back a little bit more. Yeah. And just initiate when we have that like divine inspiration when it comes to work and stuff.
Yeah, or anything, kind of to shift a little bit. I love that our conversation was so full of this. I think it's really yummy. And I know many of our listeners are going to really relate and receive it. So I feel like for 2022 in general, trust is a huge theme more than ever. I feel like, you and I are both very connected to the cosmos and the universe, and we are divinely guided. And I do believe that we are divinely guided in these times through the Aquarian age, through this golden era. And I feel like the timestamp, if you will, or the milestone that we're in within this era, this year is so symbolic of, can you just trust? Can you just move forward with certainty without having to have it all figured out, without having to have control, without even having to have like the full on, like blown vision board, right? Like, can you be in the space of like, of course, have your goals, have your inspiration, but trust just seems to be the biggest theme right now.
Oh my God. And we're talking like right after like Neptune and Jupiter went conjunct Pisces, right?
Right. Which hasn't happened in 166 years. We're in a 6th year, right? And 6 is all about like the pregnant lady, which is just like when you're having a baby, you got to trust, right? Like you can't just, you can't yank it. Well, we won't go there, but yeah, it's not going to come out earlier than it's supposed to for most people, right? So
no, it's like it's trusting the divine process that's underway, right? And it's like realizing like pregnancy is such a great example of that, because it's like nature literally designed it so that like, I mean, you like just even the let's say like you have your belly, right? It's like you can touch your belly, but you're not going to be able to mess with, unless you do something insane. But like it's pretty much designed so that you can't mess it up.
No.
Right?
And
you like get your greasy little paws off of it.
Exactly. Right? And like, besides going to get your ultrasound, like you can't see it all the time. Like there's no way to like check in or peek under the covers or, move it along faster or be like, oh, well, if I do eat this or that, the baby's going to come out faster or it's, it's like, no.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
It's trusting. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. Like even in society, it's like, society recognizes that like it's actually a negative thing to have your baby come out early, right? Because if your baby comes out early, then it's like, no, it hasn't like fully cooked. It hasn't fully gotten all the things. And obviously we have awesome like medical help for that.
Well, of course.
But what if we had that level of patience for other things, right? And just trusting that just like the embryo that grows into a fetus that then comes out as a baby that then grows into us, right? So are the ideas and the dreams and the desires that we have. And they all have their own gestation period, right? And the gestation period is similar. I love that you pointed that out because it's the fact that like you can't see under the hood, right?
No.
So that means I love this idea. I think about it often, maybe just because I'm a weirdo, it's how I think, but is the idea that like there's like things being worked out that you're not even aware of for you, right?
Yes.
Like there are things that are happening behind the scenes that you can't peek under the hood for, right? And you put that desire in place, right? And it's like the universe is conspiring, and getting things in line for you and getting you in the right place and getting you in the right mindset, maybe preparing other people or other opportunities to be aligned with you, right? And so you planted that seed, that embryo is growing, and you might not even know.
Right.
That that process is 3 months along, 4 months long, however many months along.
Exactly.
Because it's been working out. And so I think trust is everything. And trust is actually, I think, just to kind of, in an irony there of what we were just saying, trust is really the only thing that expedites the journey.
True.
Because when you trust, what happens is that you don't kind of like get stuck. In certain areas, right? If you trust that everything's always unfolding the way it's supposed to, then
it does.
Like when the guy breaks up with you or the guy doesn't text or whatever, then you're like, oh great, next, boom. Right? That's just the universe turning my car the other.
Yes. And looking at it as a moment of clarity, not a moment of rejection is really
a moment of divine direction and instruction, right? And it's like that, that you launch something for your business and it doesn't work out, great. Now it's literally just the universe being like, okay, don't do that. Okay, try something else.
Yeah.
And if you linger in those perceived rejections, right, or perceived failures or perceived wrong outcomes, bad outcomes, whatever you want to say, that's what stalls your progress. Right? When you're like hitting your head up against the wall of the maze instead of reasoning, okay, I hit a wall. Let me just turn around, go the other way and like keep going on the maze, you know?
Yeah, totally. We need to have more compassion for ourselves when it comes to trying this life out. This life is full of trial and error. And can we be gentle about that process? Can we be okay with trying out a launch and it didn't do so well? Great. Now I have deeper clarity around, another route to take. I'm so glad that I didn't lead, people on a journey that I wasn't even meant to lead them on, right? Can you imagine like for a launch again, like as an example, you launch something, it didn't work. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to relaunch. And this time I'm going to get people. And you just keep forcing and pushing and it gets harder and you're exhausting more resources. And for what? Something that probably down the road, you'll realize, oh, wait, I actually don't want to do this. I'm actually burnt out. I'm actually, again, like how many times have we tried to make jump out of the womb premature in our own life?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. It's like, it's not that it means you have one failure in your dating life or your career life. It means that it's never going to happen.
Sure.
It just means that specific thing is not the thing, right? That guy is not the guy. That project is not the project, right? Mm-hmm. Or the way that you went about launching that thing maybe wasn't right, or the price point wasn't right, or however you want to say it, right? Yeah. There's a million different little tweaks, but it's just listening to that and being able to pivot and not lose momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the things that also was really helpful, in my dating journey, and especially towards the end, where it was I just fully trusted. I even had I had a 2.5-year relationship end at one point, and it was out of nowhere. I had no idea. I did not see it coming at all. But I remember I went to the ocean. It was in Santa Monica. I went to the ocean afterwards, and I was sitting on the beach, and I felt overwhelming peace. The next day, I felt overwhelming peace. And there was a part of me, my human, almost felt guilty.
Interesting.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because my human was wait, we have to do the whole, the breakup show.
Sure, you need to be grieving, right? and calling all your friends. And
yeah, I gotta eat the takeout. I gotta go get ice cream with my girlfriends. Yeah. I gotta not sleep for a couple nights. Yeah.
Right.
And it was just nothing. It was just peace. And I was oh, okay. And it was really just because even though I was devastated, I was sad about the ending of that relationship, there was so much undeniable truth to the fact that if he was going to do that, then he just very clearly wasn't the one.
Sure.
And so he had to be removed.
Yeah. And there's a, peace sometimes in those situations, a little bit of relief. And it's a relief to what you knew deep down, because I'm sure there was a part of you deep down that knew this might not be my person.
Yeah. Well, it was fun just because we've talked so much about relationships. Yeah. Why not? It was funny in that relationship because that was another relationship that was very close to getting engaged. We had talked about marriage and living together and things like that. And so it was really interesting to see the contrast between that and my current one.
Yeah.
There was this part of me that you're right. I wouldn't say at the time I thought I knew that he was not the one, but there was that part of me that was so nervous or wasn't really settled with it and was always, when is he going to do it? Are you going to do it? How long are you going to wait? I felt I had to push him along. I felt I had to keep bringing it up. And then it was crazy to see the contrast
in this,
of, with my actual husband, where there was no, I mean, I'm still a woman, so there was still a little part of me that was how's he going to do it? When is he going to do it? Right? But it was a completely, but in a cute light, I'm excited and I want to figure it out, not in a way that I just knew, I was I feel safe, right?
I feel calm.
Calm. Yeah. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I don't
And look how fast it did happen. You had a 2.5-year relationship in comparison to a 6-month, at that time.
Right.
Very interesting, huh?
Right?
Again,
exactly.
Trust is the vehicle to move things forward. If you want the accelerator, it's trust.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
I love that. When's your book coming out on dating? What's to happen? The relationship book is next in line.
Right. Well, I feel I've had so many people ask me about that, but I really want to be married for a little bit.
And let it be sacred and let it be for you. Too.
Yeah, because I feel it's still I don't know why. I feel maybe that's a limiting belief of I have to be married to write a good relationship book. But I just feel it'd be nice to settle into marriage and maybe I'll have even more insight. I feel I have a lot of dating insight now, which I happily like love to share with like my clients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's just so much juice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fully loaded, and that would be such another undertaking too. So
I know, right? I'm like, this year, well, no, this summer is the summer of my wedding and my honeymoon, and we just bought a house like in November, so it's been like it's been a minute.
I love it. It's still incorporated in what you do, as it feels good.
Always, yeah. I'm sure it's gonna come. And I'm sure that Patrick is going to find it hilarious.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's probably kind of surreal, right? Like sometimes I think about that, like with what we do in the world and like our partners holding space, like when they're like kind of involved without realizing it. It's a funny dynamic.
He actually this is really funny. So that one guy that we broke up after 2.5 years, as part of our breakup, one of the things he said before he left, he was like, and don't tell guys that you manifested them because it's weird.
Oh, come on. That's the best thing to tell someone.
Right?
Yeah.
And literally that's like one of the first things Patrick will tell people. He'll be like, she totally manifested me. She manifested like the whole situation, our house, like everything.
I love that it's like with us, like it's like a pride. It's like that's my woman. She manifested me.
He manifested me.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. I think that's so cute. Unlike valid, you know?
And it's true. It's true. And it's like just I don't think at this point it's been really fun because like we've already had those moments where like some of my girlfriends will come over and they'll like sit with both of us and like tell us what's going on in their dating life. Yeah. And then he'll give his perspective and I'll give my perspective.
I love so much. I think it's like one of my favorite things is to go to like my closest girlfriends' places with their partners and be like, okay, I need both sides here. Like, look it on me.
It's really the best feedback. Yeah. Like I remember being on the other side of it and it's like the best because you get like the female angle, but then you also get the male angle. Yeah. And I think that's been really affirming for my future relationship book is that a lot of times when he hears me give feedback, he's like, oh my God. He's like, that's so true, but I didn't even realize that. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So lots of goodies. Yeah. Lots of goodies. Because men often don't know like what to ask for, right? But then they realize in hindsight what attracted them, right? So like he would have never like asked someone, don't text me, don't reach out, don't try to call me. But then he realized in hindsight, the fact that I was a little bit more hands off, let him come to me, gave him a lot of joy in the pursuit.
Right. Let him be the hunter, the pursuer. Yeah.
So when I give my friends advice like that, I'll be like, no, like just lay back, see what he does, like let him, whatever. He'll be like, yeah, that's great. That's brilliant. Yes, do that or whatever,
That's true. I never really thought about it and not to like totally like stereotype. But yeah, I don't know how many men are like sitting at home with their like list and their manifestation. I mean, they're out there, of course. Yeah. Each their own. But I, in my experience, the kind of man that I'm drawn to, I never really thought about that. I was like, I guess he wasn't sitting around with his list.
I think
that wasn't his job. His job was to just show up, right? Like show up to my.
I think more men than you would probably expect have an idea of what they hope their partner is going to be like. I think it's probably a little bit more broad than ours, right? But I think because they're also on their journeys and having relationships that didn't work out and dating girls that they're like not that into, right? And so they get like some of that contrast and that information. And so I think most of them probably don't do like the rituals or write it down or, do all the things, manifest and feel how it feels when they're in each other's arms, Yes.
It's Venus retrograde. I really need to use this as my period to work on my past dating shadow work.
Yeah, I don't know there's many doing that, but that's their own journey and that's our journey. And I personally think our journey is way more fun.
I agree very much so. And it is kind of cool. I will say I do like dating at this age. I'm 38 and it is kind of a cool time to date because of, like you said, as much as we've had a lot of experiences with dating different people. And so like, to your point, like manifestation or not, like you do have a better idea of what it is that you need and you're able to fine tune, which I can say this confidently. Like I'm very grateful that I am, in this period of my life with dating and I feel good about it.
Totally. You know yourself. And I think it expedites the process a lot on both ends when both people are a little bit older and they know themselves and they know what they want and they know what hasn't worked in the past, whether someone would interpret it themselves as like trusting their intuition, you trust your intuition more.
Yeah.
Right?
You do.
So you just kind of like, you have less time kind of in frivolity, and therefore it makes it way more enjoyable.
Totally.
And also just like the secret to anything in life, right, is being fully yourself and being fully authentic. And I do think that, for better or for worse, the older we get, that's why I was telling one of my other clients today this too. It's like, she was like, how do you not care what people think of you? Right. It's like, honestly, the older it's really something that I think the older you get, the less you care. It's one of the biggest blessings.
It is. And I remember hearing that like, in my teens and my 20s, older people telling me that. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, sounds nice. But as I witness it more and more, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever.
It's heaven. It's heaven. I now understand you. Like, I remember also reading an interview from someone, I think it was Jennifer Aniston or something. She was saying like, it was like for her 40th birthday or something. And they were like, what's like the best thing about being 40? And she's like, honestly, I don't care about what anybody else thinks.
I love it.
And it is like the biggest like blessing. It truly is. And that expedites not only everything in your life, you fully showing up, but it really expedites relationships and dating.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, when you tie it into relationship too, because you can just be more confident and again, trusting.
Yeah. And if you're showing up as fully yourself, then
that's all I can do.
You're able to decipher whether or not this person's like a good fit or not. Right. And if they're not a good fit, bye. Great. Get out faster.
Exactly. No, it's so much easier to tell. And again, and I don't want to say like, it's not like I don't have time to waste, but I'm not like into like, just like farting around, so to speak. Like I'm not looking to just spend time with someone to waste time with. Like I don't feel like I don't want that luxury of time per se. Like whereas in my 20s, yeah, I definitely was like, there's some guys I dated, like literally we were just dating to like literally fuck around. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like great.
Yep.
I have no interest in that right now. So it becomes so much easier to like fine tune.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like you wouldn't do that, just like you were saying before. It's like you wouldn't do that in any other area of your life.
That's true.
Right? In any other area of your life, you'd be way more like on top of it. So why fuck around in this area? Right. And just like, and also just to speak to our alone time, it's like, I also like, I'd rather be alone. Like I'd rather just like chill with myself than waste time with someone that I don't want to actually hang out with.
Oh, like to like get ready and like, I also have though, this helps with dating. So anyone that's dating or like doing what you were saying, Cassandra, in the beginning, where you're just like doing duty dating, I have like 3 dating outfits that I just rotate so I don't have to think, right? Like
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So that way, like, I'm like, oh, I have a first date tonight. What's my first date outfit? And I just put them on. It's literally my first date outfit. And I just wear it for every first date because I don't want to put any extra like effort in. And it's a good effort.
I love this so much.
And then I have a second date one. And then once we get to the third, I start to like change it up.
Then now they get,
they get an original
privileges.
They get an original outfit. But I'm telling you, have a first and second date. So that outfit, so you're not putting too much thought into that piece. And it can just be like, okay, I'm going on a date tonight. I'm looking forward to it. This is what I'm wearing. And out you go.
Yes. And let it be something that's just like comfortable, that you feel good in, that you feel like it's flattering.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my go-to.
I love that.
My go-to is
tip.
I have a pair of black, like skinny jeans that are a little bit ripped. And then I have this like, it's like an off the shoulder black sweater. And then these like bright turquoise, I have the whole thing down, bright turquoise earrings. And then these like black booties.
I love it.
And you feel good.
Yeah, it's a great first date outfit.
Right? And it's flirty, but it's still conservative. And it's so easy.
That's a really good tip. That's a really good tip. And I would also, even to add to that, have like a couple places that you really like to eat at.
That's a good point.
Guys do this all the time. We have the ability too. If a guy's asking you like, hey, like, do you have a spot? Right. Have a few places that like, you're going to enjoy the meal.
Yes. Right.
Because why? Like, because then at least I remember when I was like kind of not in the mood, I would just like be like, oh, actually, can we like, they suggest and be like, oh, that sounds great, but actually, could we go here or whatever? I'm really in the mood. Because then I'd be like, even if the date sucks, I'm really excited I got that veggie burger.
Yeah. Well, you can even put that in your profile too. Like, I would be so like, I would love for our first date, you let me know where the best veggie burger in town is.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? Or like I have something like that in mind, like where I'm like, I love like mezcal, and I'm like new to the area. tell me like your go-to for like a really good mezcal cocktail. And I've had guys do that. They're like, oh my gosh, we have to try this place. And I'm like, perfect. And it feels like they're showing up for me. I feel like I'm getting something that I want. Off we
That's a great tip. That's a great tip because it still gives them that freedom to like show you something new, and then you have something to genuinely be excited about.
Exactly.
Where you're like, wow, I'm really excited to try this. You know? Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So those are, and again,
when's your dating book coming out, Danielle?
I like
all these pro tips.
The current dude. Yeah. So, well, it's also like that multitasker in me, that entrepreneur. Like, I don't have a lot of time, right? So I'm like, you know, like the last thing I want is to like be a pen pal with guys on dating apps or to, you know, drag it out. So I'm like, okay, how can we make this like as seamless as possible so we can get to the actual meeting, which is the most important part, and then we'll see from there.
I totally agree.
I love it. Okay. Well, speaking of all our books, you currently have books. I know you have one book that just came out, and then the journal is coming out soon.
Yes. So I have a book called Manifesting Through Meditation. It's 100 guided meditations to help you create the reality that you want. So it walks you through all the different steps, all the different processes. And then it also has a bunch of specific meditations that are for like whether it's your career or love or health or whatnot. So that's out. And then I have a guided journal that's coming out May 3rd, which is a guided journal for your spiritual awakening. So definitely a great self-reflection tool if you want something to kind of keep you in that container of constantly like growing and questioning your beliefs and opening your eyes to different ways of looking at things. I'm really excited about that because I just like love journaling a lot myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Love. So we'll put the links for those books. I know you're big on Instagram. Anywhere else where people should follow, connect with you? Where do you want people to go?
Yeah. Instagram is definitely like my main home, but I also have a YouTube channel that has tons of like free content, everything from like tapping, meditations, everything you can think of in there. So that's YouTube, Cassandra Bodzak TV. And then my website is cassandrabodzak.com, and you can find anything and everything you need to know on there. We'll throw all those links below.
Yep, we will. And don't forget, if you loved this conversation, listen to our earlier conversation about cacao-gasms.
Oh my God, you will love it as well.
You'll love it as well. Well, thank you so much. I adore you, and this was so good to catch up.
Oh, this was so good. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.